Good morning, class. How are you? I hope you are fine. Today, we shall read the third poem of Robert Frost, Mending Wall. This poem is a narrative poem. I shall explain what is meant by narrative poem. This poem is unconventional poem. This poem has caused so much debate and discussion all over the world that Frost was not aware that the poem that he has written on a wall, mending wall, would become so important that the whole world, almost all the countries and people living there, they would be discussing the poem on a greater level. So, without wasting time, let me first finish the poem and then I would discuss with you this poem in detail. So, mending wall. Basically, mending wall is a kind of wall that is built by the farmers so that they can make their fields separated. It is a kind of fence, basically, barred fence. Most of the time the people, they make this fence using stones. Boulder means a round stone. आप ये समझ लीजिए कि दो जो नेबरिंग फार्मर्स होते हैं वो अपनी अपनी ज़मीनों को, खेतों को अलग करने के लिए अमेरिका में और भी बहुत सारे ममालिक हैं, दे क्रिएट अ वॉल, फेंस, वो एक बाड़ लगा लेते हैं. वो बाड़ आप चाहे ईंटों की बना लें, आप चाहे वो कोई जाली लगा लें या आप उसको पत्थरों से बना लें, इट्स योर ओन चॉइस. So this poem is basically about a wall, a fence, mending wall. So the poem Mending Wall was first published in a collection called North of Boston in 1914. So the collection of poem North Boston, in that collection this poem was published in 1914. So this is a narrative poem. Narrative poem is a poem in which the structure of the poem is narrative, that things are being narrated. So there are two speakers in this poem, the poet, the speaker, and the neighbor. The speaker that we take as the poet and the neighbor of the speaker. So they would be talking in this poem. So this is a narrative poem. And this poem presents an encounter between two neighbors. There are two neighbors. One is the speaker and the other is the neighbor, whose property line is marked by a stone fence. They have their fields. The speaker has his field and the neighbor has his own field, and their fields, they are separated by, divided by a wall, by a fence. So each spring they cooperate in repairing the damage the winter has caused to it. So these two people, these two men, the speaker and the neighbor, they meet each year to discuss that we should repair the wall, because in the winter season there are some damages done to the wall. So this wall is symbolic. This is not a physical wall, although in the poem this is a wall, but on a greater level you can describe it. You can understand that this wall represents a wall that we build in our human relationships. So I would come to that after I have finished the poem with you, so that after finishing the poem we can interpret the different possible connotations of the poem. So let's start. I have given you the brief introduction about the poem so that your interest is aroused, and now let us start reading. Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Something there is that does not love a wall. Now the first line of the poem. Something there is that does not love a wall. So in this universe there is something, and that something we do not know, the poet do not know. It might be that nature is something, or some superhuman agency is something, we do not know. Is there some supernatural power? We do not know. Is there God behind this? We do not know. So there is something, and something means something because the poet is not sure. There is something that does not love a wall. So whatever that thing is, that thing does not love a wall, means there should not be a wall. वो चीज़ जो उसने समथिंग कहा है पोइट ने, उसकी डिफरेंट पॉसिबल इंटरप्रिटेशंस बनती हैं, क्योंकि पोइट खुद भी उसे श्योरिटी नहीं है, उसे कोई पुख्ता यकीन नहीं है, इसलिए वो समथिंग कह रहा है कि कुछ है. अब वो कुछ में गॉड भी आता है, उस कुछ में नेचर भी आती है, उस कुछ में सुपर नेचुरल पावर्स ये भी आ सकती हैं. So there is something that does not love a wall, that there should not be a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it. कि वो जो समथिंग है वो ग्राउंड को, ज़मीन को, वो ये मैसेज भेजती है टू स्वेल अंडर इट. अब ज़मीन जब स्वेल करेगी, वो फूलेगी, तो उस ज़मीन के ऊपर जो दीवार बनी हुई है पत्थरों से, जो पत्थर रखे हुए हैं, वो पत्थर गिर जाएंगे और वो जो वॉल है वो वॉल टूट फूट का शिकार होगी. I hope so you are understanding my point. Something there is that does not love a wall, and because that something is not in favor of creating a wall, so that something sends a message to the ground, frozen ground, swell under it. Swell means to enlarge in its space, वो फूल जाए. अब जब ज़मीन फूलेगी तो ज़मीन के ऊपर वो जो दीवार पत्थरों से बनाई गई है, पत्थर रख रख के बनाई गई है, वो दीवार टूट जाएगी. And spills the upper boulders in the sun. Boulder, stones. Spill, make them move. So when the ground will swell, so the stones of the wall, they would move here and there and make gaps. Even two can pass abreast. And sometimes this something that does not love a wall, it makes gaps large enough that two people can come and go. So let me make you see what is a mending wall so that you can better understand. So students, here are some images about the mending wall. You can see here that it is a wall created by humans by piling some stones. You can see in this image as well. यहाँ देखें, ये देखें, ये जो stones रख दिए गए हैं. अब दूसरी जानिब देखें, इन स्टोन से दूसरी जानिब एक फील्ड है, उसके लेफ्ट साइड पे भी फील्ड है, उसके राइट साइड पे भी फील्ड है. ये देखें, ये भी एक इमेज है. अब ये ह्यूमंस खुद रखते हैं, और कभी कभी ये जो पत्थर होते हैं इनको बाउल्डर्स कहते हैं. स्टोन कह लें, बाउल्डर कह लें, एक ही बात है. ये गिर जाते हैं. जब ये गिर जाते हैं तो उसके अंदर गैप्स बन जाते हैं, और कभी कभी ये गैप इतने बड़े होते हैं कि पोइट कहता है कि इन में से लोग गुजर भी सकते हैं. ये देखें, ये भी एक इमेज है. तो ये ह्यूमंस खुद इस वॉल को बनाते हैं. इसमें कोई सीमेंट नहीं डाला हुआ, ये कोई फिक्स वॉल नहीं है, बल्कि ये टेम्परेरी है. और जो वेदर है, जो मौसम है, वो इस पर इफ़ेक्ट करता है. यही वो एट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द पोइम यही पोइट कहता है, देयर इज़ समथिंग दैट डज नॉट लव अ वॉल, कि कोई ऐसी चीज़ है जो इन पत्थरों को गिरा देती है. बिकॉज वो चीज़, वो इस वॉल को पसंद नहीं करती. डेट सेंड्स द फ्रोजन ग्राउंड स्वेल अंडर इट एंड स्पिल्स अपर बाउल्डर्स इन द सन एंड मेक्स गैप्स इवन टू कैन पास अब्रेस्ट. कि कभी कभी वो गैप इतने बड़े होते हैं डेट इवन टू पीपल कैन मीट, दे कैन टॉक टू ईच अदर. नाउ द कम टू द फिफ्थ लाइन. The work of hunters is another thing. Now the second possibility is that the hunters, they have destroyed the wall. शायद इन hunters ने जो hunting के लिए आते हैं, उन्होंने शायद इस wall को, जो दो fields को अलग करती है, उसको शायद destroy किया. I have come after them and made repair, where they have left not one stone on a stone. Now who is the I? The I is the poet. Now this I is the poet. The poet says that I have come after them, I have come after the hunters, and I started the repair. So who started the repair? My question is, who started repairing the wall? Just note in your copy, and the second section of the poem I would ask you that who initiated, who started repairing, mending the wall. So let me tell you, it is the poet who started the repair, where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean. The poet says that there are some gaps in the wall where the rabbits can come and go to please the yelping dogs. You know that the dog and the rabbits, they play. These are two animals, and the hunters, they have made some gaps in the wall so that these rabbits, they can come and go between the walls, and they can play with the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean. No one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. So who made these gaps? The poet says that no one has seen the hunters or heard that the hunters are making these gaps? They don't know. The only thing apparent is that there are some gaps in the mending wall, in the wall that is made of stones, and the poet is thinking, it is the poet's supposition that perhaps these gaps are for the rabbits to play with the yelping dogs. So no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. So there is a mending time. Mend means repair. Mend, repair. Mending wall, the wall that needs repairing. So in winter season, the weather is very severe in America. So that weather, winter, damages the wall. And in spring season, people, they usually repair the wall, they mend the wall. So the poet is saying in this line that at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. Now this is the narrative element in the poem. Now you can see that the poet is talking to you, and the poet will also talk to the neighbor. Okay, so in this line, I let my neighbor know beyond the hill. So on one side of the wall is the field, the property of the speaker, the poet, and on the other side of the wall is the land, the property of the neighbor. And he said that I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line. So he sent a message to the neighbor, and on a specific day, on a particular day, they meet and they walk along the line, and they discussed whether they should keep the wall or they should destroy the wall. Now this is the central contradiction of the poem. All the poem, it revolves around this question: should we keep the wall or should we destroy, should we remove the wall? So they decided that we should have this wall between us. So this is the line in which they decided what to do and set the wall between us once again. Okay, so the neighbor and the poet, the speaker, they met on a specific day and they talked to each other, and they both decided that we should set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. So these two lines, they very clearly tell us that they have decided to keep the wall between them. To each boulders that have fallen to each, and some are loaves and some so nearly balls, we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. So in these lines, they are saying that they have decided, they have agreed, वो दोनों रजामंद हो गए हैं. नंबर 1 ये कि वॉल, हम आपस में एक दूसरों के दरमियान वॉल रहेगी. So they also decided, they also agreed on some other things. उन्होंने कुछ और बातों पर भी इत्तेफाक किया. वो क्या है कि दोनों जानिब जो पत्थर गिरेगा वो उसका है. अगर पोइट की जानिब दीवार से पत्थर गिर गया तो वो पोइट का है, अगर वो नेबर की जानिब गिर गया तो वो नेबर का है. सो टू ईच boulder that have fallen to each, and some are lobes and some so nearly balls. तो कुछ पत्थर हैं जो राउंड हैं, कुछ पत्थर हैं जो राउंड नहीं हैं, तो वो उसकी बात कर रहे हैं. सो वी हैव टू यूज अ स्पेल टू मेक देम बैलेंस. पोइट कहता है कि लगता है कि इन पत्थरों को बैलेंस करने के लिए हमें कोई स्पेल का इस्तेमाल करना पड़ेगा. स्पेल मीन्स अ वर्ड डेट फंक्शंस मैजिक. जो जादू के लिए हम वर्ड्स बोलते हैं, मंत्र वगैरह, कि हमें कोई मंत्र पढ़ना पड़ेगा कि ये पत्थर ना गिरें. स्टेयर वेयर यू आर अनटिल आवर बैक्स आर टर्न्ड. तो पोइट फिर वो मंत्र, ये स्पेल यूज़ करता है कि जब तक हम अपनी बैक्स टर्न नहीं कर लेते, जब तक हम जुदा नहीं हो जाते, पत्थरों तुम जहाँ हो वहीं रहो. सो यहीं से मैं कल स्टार्ट करूँगा पोइम. आप इस पोइम को यहाँ तक पढ़ें, 3 to 4 रीडिंग्स दें, लेक्चर को सुने, अंडरस्टैंडिंग बनाएं, और कल मैं यहीं से पोइम को लेके फॉरवर्ड मज़ीद आपसे आगे चलूँगा. टेक केयर, गुड बाय.